So did you launch in COVID or around COVID time?
Yeah, yeah. It
Ah,
was literally December 2019. So,
wow. Literally as it was
yeah.
happening in the Chinese food market. That's ironic for
Yeah.
you. This week's guest is an absolutely delightful founder who shares with us some real honest observations around leading as a founder, why it's challenging when you've got a remote business and a physical bricks and mortar office. So we go through her advice and her learns over the last 6 years since she set up. This is Lucy Robinson, and she's the founder of LCR International, who are a UK-based business but focusing 100% internationally with team members in South America and across Asia as well. And she has also launched in 2026 her very own podcast called Behind the Fruit. So that gives you an indication as to her amazing industry, which I could just talk about, although she recruits senior search leadership level for the fruit and vegetable and fresh produce industry. How exciting. We talk about AI and automation. We talk around how to create harmony, what it means to actually be a really strong leader, and what you need to do as a founder yourself if you're listening, what you should do to maintain your own mindset and to improve your self-development. I can't wait for you to get to know Lucy. So let's jump straight in. This is Lysha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And I'm really excited to welcome to our global community today somebody who has actually launched their own podcast in 2026. So it's very exciting to get a fellow podcaster on and female founder of a fabulous recruitment business. So without further ado, let me welcome Lucy Robinson, who is the founder of LCR International and podcast host of Behind the Fruit. I cannot wait to hear all about that. Welcome, Lucy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Lysha, for having me on today.
You're very welcome indeed. So, obviously, I know you in a professional capacity in my day job as a rectorate because you are one of Shannon's dearest clients. But tell us about your business and also your podcast. Tell us a little potted history of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, business wise, my company is LCR International. We've been established for about just over 6 years now, and we specialize actually within the fresh produce niche. So, our clients are global fruit and vegetable growers, exporters. We also work with investors across multiple locations around the world. We've supported clients now in 22 countries, so it's
Wow.
really widespread. And it's with senior management, director, and C-suite hires. So we're based in our office is in Harrogate, just near Leeds, and we also have an international team as well in South America and Asia. So that's a bit about the business and what we do. Shall I tell you a bit
Great.
about
And
the
then
podcast?
you tell,
Yeah.
yeah, the podcast Behind the Fruit. I'm not, now I know why it's called that. Well, I
Yeah.
already knew what you did, but I love the name.
Yeah, it's quite new, the podcast. So I think we've released, I think, 3 episodes. We've got a few more that are currently being edited. But yeah, basically we interview and meet with leaders, basically leaders and founders from the fresh produce industry.
Mm.
So those that are um innovators, for example, things that people that are doing anything interesting within the industry, and it's really focused on their story as well as leadership and hiring. So really looking at leadership tips, advice, experience, and then touching on hiring as well. And then Behind the Fruit obviously being, a lot of
The
them are from the
particular.
fruit industry. So
Oh, I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
great. Yeah, absolutely love it. It's quite new. Um so for me, coming on podcasts like this is also great from a learning experience on the other side.
Other side of the
Yeah,
I always say, because I'm
yeah.
very privileged as well that I get asked to be a guest, and I always absolutely relish that opportunity because it means that I mean, from a preparation point of view, I just ramble. I let everything out my brain that's been in my brain for 27 years. So no, I love that. And I think that your industry is probably really interesting from an
Mm,
innovation point of view, but also in terms of, just as a human being and an inhabitant on planet Earth. I think that everybody's fed up of all the big food companies and people want to eat fresh. So there's probably some really
mm.
exciting things happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
find it
must.
very interesting. We work with,
Mm.
for example, fruit breeders that are developing new types of fruit, creating genes. And yeah, it's all very scientific.
Really?
Yeah, so
That's
that's
so
very
cool.
interesting. And then so now I'll go into the supermarket and I'll be like, always, buy a punnet of grapes, right? Where's it from? Which company's grown this? What's the
Absolutely.
location? Always looking at that. So yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Mm,
But we typically work with clients, they might have multiple locations. So they would come to us, let's say they are a US based business, but they will come to us for senior hires in Peru and South Africa and China, for example. So they
right.
will, because a
So it's
lot of
global
companies will have
expansion.
multiple locations
Mm,
because they need to, because of the global aspect of fruit and produce,
mm.
essentially.
Without sounding facetious yet again, how did you get into this industry? Because this sounds like the kind of industry that if I could turn the clock back, I wish I was in an industry like this because it's just so fascinating. Like you're saying, it's ever evolving. And I presume it's recession proof because we always need to
Mm,
eat. So how did you
exactly.
get into it?
Yeah, so the previous business I worked for were FMCG
Mm,
specialists, and I was in the food division. So it was
right.
food, but all categories of food. So I worked with companies in, bakery, meat, confectionery, literally
Wow.
everything, all UK based, but including produce. Worked with some
Mm,
farms at the time. And yeah, I mean, absolutely love the world of fresh produce. It's completely different. Did not have the same passion. For example, a meat factory just doesn't do it for
don't know
me.
why. No, I'm the
No.
same. I'm with you there. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like,
No offense
I
to
can leave
anyone
that one.
listening.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so produce, yeah, just, and then also it's very different from the rest of the food industry. It really is a world on its own. People
Mm,
tend to not leave fresh produce. They tend to
yep.
grow up in it, stay within it forever. It's
Mm,
hard to enter the industry without experience as well. So our
right.
clients almost always, not always, we do hire people from other industries, but
Mm,
90% of the time they're looking for people specifically from that industry or very specifically from that specific category as well.
wow.
So, for example, you wouldn't, if it's a berry business, we wouldn't hire from, I don't know, carrots or something different. Like they
That
wouldn't.
must but that's challenging from I'm just thinking with recruitment head on
Yeah.
here, that must be quite challenging from an inclusivity point of view and also, if you're just moving the same kind of people, are you actually really innovating in terms of your skills from a hiring perspective? Why is it
Mm.
is it from a more scientific point of view in terms of
Yeah,
how you
exactly
grow
that.
this item? Right, okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
and also on even on the commercial side, there's a lot of difference commercially in terms of pricing points. Even the
Right.
buyers within the supermarkets often are
Mhm.
different as well. So again, it's the connections.
Right,
So there's,
fair enough.
yeah, there's lots of reasons
Wow.
why it would be quite different. So yeah, so essentially did that for quite a few years and really wanted to develop a niche. I've also done a lot of travel in my past. So I've done yeah, lived overseas, done backpacking. It's still to this day I will travel a lot. Like we go to lots of new places. So I love new cultures, love working internationally and really wanted to do that. Really, really wanted to break into the international market. So yeah, so that's why I developed, yeah, the fresh produce niche, but then internationally as well.
So timeline-wise, I'm guessing when you said you were 6 years, so did you launch in COVID or around COVID time?
Yeah, yeah. It
Ah.
was literally December 2019. So
Wow,
just,
literally as it was
yeah,
happening in the Chinese food market. That's irony for
yeah,
you.
I
And
know,
so how
yeah,
did so for what made you launch on your own? And then how did you that first year of business, I can't even imagine how stressful
yeah.
that must have been to you, Lucy.
I mean, you say it's recession proof, and it is to a certain extent, but I suppose you can
Mhm.
imagine that we had clients that were, for example, supplying produce into food service, restaurants,
Yeah.
etc. So
Mhm.
they stopped overnight. We had,
Annihilated, yeah.
candidates that were nearly at offer stage that was just like, yeah, completely stopped. On the other side, we were working with clients that supplied retail, and their business tripled overnight because everybody started buying from the
Yep.
supermarkets.
Yeah.
So, and I was already working from home. I'd just set up, so I was working from home. So, I didn't go through everything like, the whole furlough
Mm.
experience and all of that. None
Mm.
of it really
Mm.
affected me. We had
Yeah.
a 3-year-old at the time. So between me and
Right.
my husband, we just had to work out
Juggle.
who would look after him. We just, yeah, managed it between us, I think, just switched up our hours. So yeah, I mean that was interesting. I was already starting to work internationally. I remember going to a fresh produce exhibition in Berlin in
Mm.
February 2020, and it was just starting then. Like there was a lot of people that didn't come at that point.
Right.
we weren't wearing masks, but lots of people were. I think it was just, yeah, there was a lot of talk about
Mm,
it. It was just starting.
mm.
It was only what, a month or so after that yeah, it all kicked
It's
off.
the
Yeah.
the the proverbial hit the fan, absolutely. So
Yeah.
if we fast forward to where we are now at 6 years later, tell us a little bit about the structure of your business.
Yeah, so now we've got an office. We're a mixture between, we're a hybrid really, so we mixture
Mm,
from home and from the office. But we've got an office in Harrogate. We haven't probably moved to Leeds soon, so looking at an
mm,
office in Leeds. Um, and then we have a team. So we've got somebody in South America working remotely that helps us, particularly from a time zone perspective, to help with any
mm.
US based roles,
Right.
also America based, and also from a language perspective. So we've got a Spanish speaker on the team. And then again in Asia, we've got a team there. So we're really leaning into the remote sort of virtual
Mm,
workers as well as the again time zone. So we've got somebody that can help us interview, for example, in Asia from a time zone perspective.
mm.
So yeah, that's really the structure of the business at the moment. Yeah.
And then so as a leader and as a founder and, as a busy working parent,
Mhm.
how do you manage to create harmony with those who are local to your actual physical office and those who are remote? Given, I guess, any kind of FMCG led business, it's all around the pace and the communication. So, how do you position your day? Like, what lessons can we learn from you in terms of, I guess, culture and creating harmony, but from a workflow perspective, so that there's no major delay between, like you say, between
Yeah.
those time zones?
It is challenging.
Mm,
There are definitely challenges of having a remote team.
mm.
Culturally, it's a lot more difficult to create culture. So it's something that
Yep.
you actually have to actively think about and spend time to create. Obviously go back to the days we were in the office 5 days a week. You didn't have to think about it. You just, it just
That was
happened.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do whatever. So, so this is, yeah, it's very different. So we do like online events, which the team have come up with some. I don't get involved in organising these. They've come up with some really interesting, like, events that we can do virtually, which is a lot of fun. We have a lot of meetings online. So yeah, weekly meetings. It is tricky because you have to think about keeping others updated as well.
Mm,
It's not quite as simple as just shouting over the office and being like, oh, this just happened. You have to pick up your phone or send a message to specifically to
yep.
keep updated. And then
Mm,
time zone wise, again, there has to be things in place. So I think there's pros and cons. I know there's a lot of hype at the moment about hiring remote teams.
yep.
And on one side, I think it's great. On the other side, it does come with its challenges. From what I've just said, obviously making sure that people are doing what they need to be doing. That for example, it might be that um, when somebody's um logging on in the morning, you're having to wait a few hours for somebody else to start the day. So that person, when they're finishing, they have to make sure that they've updated the team, so when you're logging on, you know exactly what they were doing for the 3 hours before they finished. So there is lots of
Mm,
challenges there. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, by the time this goes out, it'll be months later. But when I posted my LinkedIn this morning, it was around, if you think back to the disruption that COVID, I guess, fast forwarded the cultural changes that were going to happen in our society, which was that it wasn't just a certain, marginalized group that needed flexible working, which tended to be caregivers, not just parents, but
Mm.
caregivers. Whereas the whole world was like, we all went remote and then it was hybrid. And then it's like, we're still in this dilemma of what works best. And one of my observations on the post was the challenges I see as a recruiter of recruiters, but this won't be singularly just for Rec to Rec. This will be for anyone that's working in an environment. And I appreciate in some sectors it's impossible to do anything remotely. Is that the tendency as a leader, if you haven't been, I guess, trained and developed in how to manage wherever somebody's based, it's very easy if someone is sat next to you. You can hear them on a call. You can, you're flowing together. You've got the constant, I'm going to use this word, communication. But if you are remote and it's, clearly from a practical perspective, you can't be there. It's actually very hard to be a leader because you don't want to be omnipresent, i.e., micromanaging. But at the same time, you might not know from one working day to the next if you've got a crossover of only about 3-4 hours. I think it's a real challenge, and I think that we're 6 years into, I guess, the sort of new way of how do you work? What works best for each company? And my conclusion is always it has to be very specific to that business. It should not be one size fits
Mhm.
all. But I find it interesting because you've almost kind of got two cultures really. You've got the hybrid one with your office physical presence, and then you've got this remote. So I think people are always very interested in how it works. And what I love is that you're pragmatic. You're not saying it's easy, but it's communication, isn't it? From what you've just said,
It really is, yeah.
updating.
And I think
Mm.
also going back to the culture aspect, in terms of different cultures, um, you have to be you have to understand that there are quite big differences in different cultures around the world, and
Mm.
it's not quite as straightforward to maybe to learn those cultures. So, for example, there might be times where somebody in a different location could come across as less communicative, or um, maybe not as forthcoming often,
Yeah.
depending on the location. Whereas on the flip side, they might think that as Brits that we can be quite direct, or
Mm.
yeah, uh,
Oversharers. Mm.
oversharers, or even so I think it's quite common for us in meeting, like if you want to speak, you speak, like you get your word in when you want to, you just like
Mm.
on it, like right, my turn to speak, I'm going to speak. There's other cultures, no, they wait for their turn, they either wait for
Yeah.
permission, or they wait
Yeah.
until there's enough of a silence to know that they can speak. And that's very, very normal. On the other side though, you know, if you look at some cultures like I think the Netherlands and the US, they're even more direct than the US, sorry, than the UK, and they all think that we like, why do people in the UK not say what they mean? Like, why
We're
don't you
too
say?
but we're seen as very polite, aren't we? And we don't
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
think that's do you know what? In all the episodes I've ever done, and we must be we're well over 300 now, must be heading to 350. I don't think anyone has ever made that point before about
Mm,
working with people globally that you have different like you say, there are certain things that in some cultures are regarded as disrespectful. And this isn't about not being inclusive to, diversity because everybody's different.
right.
I'm not saying I'm the same as the Joe Blogs up the street that lives around the corner from me, but
Yeah.
what you're saying is just from a behavioural perspective, generally speaking, that that there are maybe nuances that you need to be aware of, and you need to educate yourself, and you need
Yeah,
to have
there really
somebody that
are.
is going to sort of make sure you're not being offensive and respecting that as a leader. So that's a really well made point, Lucy, that I don't think has ever been made before. So thank you
I
for that.
think that's why a lot of companies are having lots of success with South Africa. Obviously, you've got the English
Mhm.
speaking, time zone wise, it's very
Yeah.
similar, and also
Yes.
culturally is very similar. So I
Mhm.
think that's why, yeah, South Africa.
Funnily enough, one of my guests later on today that I'm recording, who'll probably be going out in about 4 weeks.
Mhm.
That's one of the main topics. He actually runs an outsourcing company to South Africa, so that's one of the main topics we're going to talk about. So that's really interesting.
Right,
So
yeah.
I don't want to brush over the fact that you launched a business in COVID, but with a young family. So now with the fact that you're 6 years in, you've clearly created a scalable company. How do you ensure your mindset is protected? What do you do to ensure that, you're, keeping fresh and being well to ensure that you can lead your company in the future? Like how have you, I guess, I don't know, whatever you've wrapped around yourself to protect your well-being and make sure that you're developing yourself as a leader?
To develop, so my own development. So yeah, so I do quite a lot actually for development. So from really sort of the less costly things, let's say, in terms of like I'm a big lover of audiobooks and podcasts, so that's quite frequent for me, through to paid for coaching. So a couple of things. So I joined the Retrained
With Louise Archer.
yeah, with Louise Archer, Search Foundations course. So that helped us transition from fully contingent to fully retained, or over 90% retained.
Amazing.
And then I'm still part of the membership group, which is an annual membership, and you have frequent coaching with Louise Archer, and loads of things. There's so much involved. So that is something I'm still a member of. And then I've also started working with an advisor as of this month, who's going to
Wow.
help more with the business, like looking at how to improve the business moving forward. And then previously I've had coaching as well, more kind of like I guess kind of like more holistic kind of mindset coaching, which I did for a couple of years. So I'm very, very big on investing in my own development. I think
Good.
going from working as an employee to being a founder, like I do need that, because I think, like, yeah, it's easy to tell other people what to do, but then you have to, what's the word? You have to do what you say you're going to do. You can't say, oh, you need to do X, Y, Z, and then you not do it. So obviously you have to be able to motivate yourself and
Absolutely.
keep accountability. And sometimes that can be difficult. It really can. You could easily hide behind it and just pretend, but you have to make sure that you are keeping on top of things. So I think for me, always having a coach or somebody else that I can not answer to, but that can help me.
Accountable.
Yeah, keep me accountable. Yeah, I think is really
I think
important.
there's a spectrum, and anyone that's listening won't see what I'm doing, but basically it's like I'm holding a piece of wood. So on one side, you've got founders who almost take it as their liberty to come and go as they please. They go, wherever it is, where they're off swanning on trips, and they leave their teams to run the business. And then you've got people on the other side, like literally on the other side, who are so entrenched in the day to day. They're working in the business day to day. They're not taking any time to do any of the things you've just described, whatever that looks like, by the way, whatever that development looks like, that investment in yourself. And then you get people who sit in the middle. And I would very firmly put me and you in the middle there, which is that you recognize that, being a founder you have responsibility. No matter how big your team is, you have a responsibility to your business, to your brand, but to yourself and to your family. To I think, it's very cheesy to say this expression, but to put your own oxygen mask on first, because
Yeah,
I'm a big believer that it's a bit like parenting, and I'm sorry if I've, disregard anybody that's
no,
not a
yeah,
parent and never wants to be a parent, but I always think that, they say that your children watch you. It's not what you say, it's what you do. And that's, I
mhm,
think, what you were alluding to. And it's the same as a leader, that your people around you can give all the pep talks. You can, stand there on a Friday and say, great week, not a great week, whatever. But it's the day-to-day behaviors of what you do for yourself and how you go about doing it that will inspire them or not. And they'll call me.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's really, it's all things within your reach. And, I'm really pleased that you mentioned that, there are some things that, you can do that don't cost any money, which, let's face it, we're both running a podcast. Yours is embryonic, mine's 6 seasons in. There's literally thousands of podcast channels out there, audiobooks. There's always ways that you can YouTube, however you choose to learn. I think having a coach is, that is through a community like Lou's. I run obviously my Women in Recruitment Leadership. That's very much around that mentoring, or you actually have an exec coach, but a board advisor, that accountability. Because very often as a founder, you can just feel like you're floating along, and it's like, am I doing the right thing? Like, I've got no safe space. And I love that, you're proud of all those things, and your team will know that, and they'll look to you and go, when you're making recommendations for them to go and do something to improve themselves. I just think you never complete the school of recruitment. You never complete the school of leadership. So you have to continuously learn and develop, don't you?
yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think it's really important for me, and it's actually one of our values about continuous development. And there's different ways, like not everybody wants to progress, and not anybody has to progress. And I think there's a difference between wanting to move up the corporate ladder or progress and developing yourself. You can still develop your skills day to day, so you don't become
Mm.
stagnant. So yeah, I think that's really, really important, just to be always, yeah, absorbing, learning, and just seeing how you can improve essentially.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear that. So as a business, I know that when we had our sort of pre-agreed conversation, you wanted to talk around sort of where you see AI and automation. So I imagine, bringing your industry back into it, I imagine that's gone through enormous innovation in the last decade. So how have you learned maybe from your industry in terms of how to automate and what to automate? And then what are you seeing as you sort of look to this? I mean, by the time this goes out, we'll probably be well into quarter 2, but where are you seeing sort of the shift in trends of what AI and automation should be doing in your business?
Yeah, and I think at the moment it's really more leaning towards automation than AI. I mean, I'm a big user of ChatGPT. I use it every day for
Yeah, me too.
all sorts, like
Everything.
everything. Yeah. Um, but in terms of automation, so for us, we're really focusing on anything that's basically repetitive admin tasks that don't need a human touch. So little things like um adding CVs to the database. Yes, it can be, 3-4 clicks to get on there, but can you reduce that to 1 click? And over time it's yeah, reducing your time, improving efficiencies, outreach as well. So we've So we've just signed up with Source Whale actually,
Mm.
which has been,
Mm.
there is a manual element to it, but also a lot is automated, and that's been amazing. That's yeah, really big fan of that. Yeah, so I think things like that, like email sequencing, note takers. So that's what that is, AI note taker. Great. So we don't have to write any
Mm.
notes anymore. That's been a game changer. And then they are automatically added to the CRM as well, so you don't have to upload those notes. So yeah, they're the main things. We are big on
Mm.
automation. We've got a big list of tasks that we want to automate. I think the learning for me is how long it takes to implement some of
Mm.
these, and then how often it can go wrong until
Yeah.
until eventually it goes right. But yeah, so we've been doing that for a good 12 months now, and yeah, overall it's taken a lot longer than I expected.
Anticipated.
Yeah,
Mm.
for it to get it right, and we are getting there. There's lots of things that we've automated now, even simple reminders.
Yep.
Um, yeah, things like that. Yeah, so there's loads ongoing that we're doing at the moment, which is really really helpful. What I don't see ever taking over, at least for us, is anything to do with speaking to people. Like, and I know others that are. I know that people are using AI to interview
Awful.
candidates. Yeah, not for me. So yeah,
It's just awful.
yeah.
I am, and I'm, I'm not classing myself as the typical Gen Xer here, but and this hasn't been in a work context actually. Just as a as a citizen of the United Kingdom, there's been one situation with estate agents, and I think I had it with, I can't remember now what it was with, and it was just, I was so frustrated, and they sounded really creepy, and I'm like, I just want a
Oh,
human, just want a human.
yeah.
So I think it's really interesting because if I look back over the last, we've been talking about AI really on this podcast since about start of 2023. I think that's really when we started to say, look, this
Mm,
is something we need to really, and that's how quickly it's progressed. It's quite, think back, think in another 3 years, what will this even be us? Will it be our avatars, Lucy? Who knows? And she will definitely not have a blur on her screen, will she?
yeah.
I'm only joking. That was just an off camera joke. But I think if I think on our journey, maybe similar to yours, if I think back to the start of 2025, that's when I was like, I really have to take this seriously now. Like, I don't want to get left behind. I'm a bit
Mm,
scared of, what could happen if I don't invest in it. And it was quite an arduous process. And I kind of worked on the business, which, I take time to work on the business too, but it took far longer than I thought it was going to, doing all the data cleansing. But now that we're through the other side of it, I'm so relieved that we've done it. And there are some amazing, huge shout out to our sponsor, Pager, who are an amazing company that, from a business development point of view, in terms of what their AI does, it's so easy and simple. Even I can do it. And it's
yeah.
just wonderful at formulating strategies for target clients and candidates as well. But there's my view is that you decide, and actually Darren, who's the founder of Pager, said this last week at our Women in Recruitment Leadership event. He said, you don't choose the software and then try and fit around your business. You as a business find a software that fits what you
Yeah.
do. So if you're listening to this now, don't get sold to. Make sure you shop around. If you want to speak to me or Lucy's just mentioned Sourcewell, I've just mentioned Pager. If you want to talk about, go and speak to a customer and get a real view of what the onboarding was like, why you decided to go with it. Because the reality is, I think that's my observation about AI and automation. There is so much choice. I almost feel like it's going to go pop. Like, how do you decide? So, but what I like is that we've both concluded that reality is it's just there to make us more efficient. We can just get on and actually speak to people and do our actual job and not be sort of doing
Yeah, yeah,
admin
that's it.
bit.
Gone are the days with like piles of notes on your desk and having to flick through, folders and files to
Oh, I
find
still write
important
everything that
notes. Yeah,
honestly, and that's just because of my brain. I mean, AI note taker is remarkable because, in fact, I turned off the one to send it to Atlas because we use Atlas and everything gets recorded and sent straight onto the database. But I still like to write everything down because then I know it goes in there in my head and
yeah,
pointing to everybody. But I totally agree with you, and I think those days are long gone. There's so many ways you can say, we don't use yellow pages anymore, do we? We just go on our phone. But I do think it's really interesting. So one final thing, do you get lots of free fruit and veg sent to you? Do you get
Not sent, but when we go
oh,
to we'll go to the exhibitions,
oh yeah.
and yeah, and then it's a lot of trying, yeah, nice new fruit, particularly berries. Yeah, lots of
Berries.
innovation berries, which is great.
I'm
So
excited. They need to do it because I can't have anything that's too high in fructose. Even like a strawberry will send me loopy now because I don't have any refined sugar at all. So I find raspberries I'm okay with, blackberries I'm okay with, but anything else. So if there's any berries coming up that are low fructose, you need to let me know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the blueberries that are coming out at the moment are great. Really large blueberries, which I just love. So yeah.
They send me no, they send me under. They literally put me
Really?
into.
Oh, I didn't think they
They're
were that
very
high.
high. They're
Okay.
very high in fructose. So I
Oh,
can
I didn't know that.
even in Greek yogurt, guys. I literally, if I have those, I know I'm going for a granny dose about an hour later. So
Oh
they are
no.
beautiful. You're meant to freeze them apparently. That apparently it does something to the antioxidants. You'll have to ask that the next time you meet a
Mm,
blueberry grower. I see
right.
because I follow people like Zoe. I follow a lot of nutrition, and apparently
Yeah.
that's the best way to maintain. It's a bit like frozen peas. You
Yeah.
know, that's where you maximise it. Oh
True
God,
that.
if ever I'm giving up Rec to Rec, I'm coming to work with you because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
sector
Yeah.
fascinates me. Lucy,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you making time to speak to us today on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast.
Thank you so much.